Welcome to the fiscal year 2024 CSBG Annual Report Kickoff, hosted by the Division of Community Assistance within the Office of Community Services. I will pass it on to Minette Galindo, who will be the presenter for today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. As Nikki shared, my name is Minette Galindo, and I have the privilege of serving as the Policy, Data, and Evaluation Branch Chief here for the Division of Community Assistance. I bring greetings from our Office of Community Services leadership team, including our very own Dr. Laniqua Howard and our Deputy Director, Janelle George. We are excited to virtually welcome you all, the entire CSBG network, to the kickoff call for the FY24 CSBG Annual Report. Last year, we asked you all for survey feedback during all of our webinars, just to calibrate how we show up for you all and how we partner with you in success. We reviewed the feedback from the poll questions, hearing from you all during the data assurance calls. We made some updates to these webinars in hopes that it serves our states, tribes, territories, and eligible entities as they do the work each day to serve millions across this country. It is my hope that today we can bask in the success you all have had in performance and touching the lives of many, provide you with some timely updates for national performance reporting, set out the plan for the fiscal year 24 report, and lay out all of the tools available to you and answer your questions. Before I do see that we have a couple of hand raise features. I'm not sure if that is intentional, or if you have a question or have a technical issue, you can put your question in the Q&A pod. If you need support for something else, you can drop that in the chat. Members of the Policy, Data, and Evaluation Branch are here to respond to your questions, and we will also read them out loud at the end. And if you have a technical issue, we do have folks from our Office of the Chief Information Officer on standby as well. Next slide, please. So for our agenda for today, what we'll do is kick off with some of our fiscal year 23 CSBG network performance highlights. We're going to share the updates on how we are reaching our peak with submitting the annual report, and the key performance highlights of the incredible work happening across the country at the state, tribal, territorial, and local levels. We know that traditionally the data goes in and you may not see it, but we want to take a moment to brag on the network a bit and demonstrate just a small portion of the story. We'll then give you all some updates on our accountability and how we're using the data to tell the national story and where things are. We will then shift into the strategy for the FY24 report that is due on March 31st, 2025, and provide you all with next steps. Before we end, we want to make sure you have all the tools and resources available to you at your fingertips in our partnerships towards collective success. As shared earlier, there is a question and answer pod. Members of the Policy, Data, and Evaluation team will answer your questions in writing. And then at the end, I will read the questions out for the good of the whole. And during the webinar, if we reference a link, we will be sure to drop them in the chat for quick reference. Next slide, please. Before we dive into the agenda, we do want to ground the space in the charge that we all have and that we share under the law. As for the CSBG priorities, the Office of Community Assistance and the Office of Community Services and the Division of Community Assistance partners with states, tribes, territories, communities, and community action agencies across the country to eliminate the causes of poverty, increase self-sufficiency for individuals and families, and revitalize low-income communities. These three tenets are the true north and the center for our discussion. This report gets to us helping to reduce poverty across 99% of the counties in the United States, talks about how we are investing in communities with low income across this nation, and how we are empowering millions of individuals and families with low income. Next slide, please. Within the Division of Community Assistance, we understand We recognize and we are keenly aware of all that it requires to administer CSBG, and we share a collective goal in success so the individuals and the families that we serve stand to benefit. The PEAK framework, which as a refresher stands for performance, evaluation, accountability, accessibility, and knowledge, are critical to the underpinnings of what we'll discuss today, and you'll hear me use those words as we go through today's webinar. Every element of PEAK touches one another. None of these components operate independently, or as I like to say, our destinies are tied, and so are the elements of PEAK. The annual report includes aspects of every pillar of PEAK, whether it be the ACSI scorecard, the standards, the measures, training, technical assistance, monitoring, or the policies that we put out. So I just want to leave this, can we go back one slide? Leave this on the screen for just a second so we can kind of soak up the elements of PEAK, because you will hear those words as we go throughout today's presentation. Next slide, please. As you all know, OCS has reaffirmed its commitment to analyzing our data and the burden, and it's important that we also address the proposed changes to the CSBG annual report. OCS began the public comment process under the Paperwork Reduction Act in April, and we received OMB approval on the current annual report in 2 different forms that make up the tribal annual report. We received a significant number of comments on the version of the report with substantial revisions, which is Annual Report 3.0, and delayed submitting that portion of the report until we were able to reconcile every single comment received. OCS has reconciled all of the comments received, and on October 9th, ACF published the second notice for public comments directly to OMB on Annual Report 3.0. For this year's annual report that's due on March 31st, 2025, our states and territories should plan to use Annual Report 2.1, which is the current report and the one that everyone is familiar with. So today's discussion and all of the support you all are receiving for this year's submission due on March 31st are relevant to Annual Report 2.1 and not Annual Report 3.0, as that is not OMB approved. And following OMB approval, OCS will issue additional guidance on the status of how we will be phasing in the implementation of that report. But for March 31st, 2025, and for this webinar and all of the webinars this year, we are referring solely to Annual Report 2.1. Next slide, please. Now that we've grounded ourselves in the center of our work, provided the elements we use to guide the administration, oversight, and evaluation, and we were sure to calibrate our reporting tool, we are so excited to share some of the fiscal year 23 CSBG network performance highlights. Next slide, please. We want to demonstrate the success of the network and the people we reached, but before we move outside that box, we want to discuss the box itself. We all know that the CSBG Act requires the submission of the annual report, and we would be remiss if we did not acknowledge the increase in complete and timely annual report submissions. We have discussed accountability as part of that PEAK framework in our operations, and our ability to tell the story hinges on our grant recipients and subrecipients submitting their reports to completion and on time. For the last 3 fiscal years, complete and timely submissions are on the rise across the network, and this network should be immensely proud. Our aim is 100% as it's a legal requirement, but it's also so important to push that story up and out. In fiscal year 2020, for the fiscal year 2022 CSBG annual report, we had a 58% on-time submission rate. For the fiscal year 23 CSBG annual report, we hit 96% by the due date. And that is huge and something that I think you all should celebrate. I see the claps and the applause and hearts coming through. And I do want to make sure that you all take a moment to really celebrate that element of success and the accountability as part of the PEAK framework. So good Thank you. And we're aiming for 100% with the fiscal year 23 or fiscal year 24 CSBG Annual Report. Next slide, please. Now, because of these submissions, we can tell you all today a bit about who was served across the nation in FY23. I do want to note that this data is inclusive of the 49 of 53 states and territories that have a complete and final submission and are closed out as of today. As I shared on the previous slide, we hit 96%. We hadn't quite hit 100, so these numbers aren't representative of the entire country, but those that have a complete submission. The CSBG network in fiscal year 2023 served 10,160,526 people. That's more than the total population of the state of Michigan. That's huge and something that we want to celebrate and really say to community action that we see you. Over 5 million households were served in fiscal year 23, which is more than the number of households in the state of Illinois. And CSBG helped 165,961 people obtain safe and affordable housing. That's a little less than the number of housing units currently in Stark County, Ohio. You all have served over 1 million children ages 0 to 5, and that's more than the number of children in the state of Wyoming. Almost 1.3 million older adults were served, and about 1.5 million individuals with disabilities served. This demonstrates the people, the who, behind who we're talking about when we talk about the CSBG story and telling that story. And our ability to bring this information to you all hinges on the complete and timely submission of the annual report. And I do want to provide a bit more and kind of unpack some of the key highlights. There are so many. The report is big, but if we can go to the next slide, we could talk about a couple of highlights with services and outcomes. Again, this is representative of the 49 of the 53 grant recipients that submitted. Nearly 50,000 people in fiscal year 23 received mental health counseling because of this network. Over 105,000 people received school supplies, which we know can be a key marker for success. Children and youth are able to show up stronger because the added burden about worrying about whether or not they have the supplies they need was addressed by community action. Over 30,000 adults obtained employment up to a living wage. And I shared on the slide again, but I really want to hone in on this. Over 165,000 individuals obtained safe and affordable housing because of the work done each day by this network. This work is due to the tireless work of the frontline staff at our CAAs, the managers, the executive directors, board members, state agencies, state administrators, and state office staff. We know that there's so much more happening across this nation, and we are able to amplify this because the power of storytelling begins first when the pen hits the paper or the key is stroked on the keyboard. Next slide, please. We are also expanding our capacity to provide feedback on community level transformation, and I wanted to highlight 2 that we received this last fiscal year. I'm not sure if Oregon is on the line, but surprise. So the Community Services Consortium in Oregon launched the Forest Fuels Reduction Initiative after the 2020 wildfires destroyed portions of Oregon. Not only did they leverage the connections and partnerships to ensure there was a sustainable follow-on to addressing this emergency, but they saw the opportunity to also reinvest in the community through the training and employing of community members in forest fuel reduction and defensible space projects. I want to sit with that. This agency worked within understanding that the relief came quick, but they needed a sustainable solution. And they leveraged the partnerships and the existing resources to ensure that not only the people that were impacted were helped, but that they were able also to earn a living while they invested in protecting their community. Showing up strong and developing a solution like this created 50 jobs and also provided educational support to students that were graduating. Community Services Consortium, we see you and we honor the path that you all are paving in Oregon and throughout this country. Next slide. New opportunities in Connecticut developed REBA Aspira and launched the REBA Career Academy. They saw that a specific neighborhood was disproportionately impacted by unemployment. They set out the goal to reduce employment by 50% in the South End and River Baldwin neighborhoods. New opportunities, the team at REBA Aspira and the people of South End and River Baldwin, we see you and we support this incredibly vital work you're doing to help families and individuals reach self-sufficiency. Next slide. Now we've grounded ourselves in our collective goals, the framework for how we approach the administration, oversight, and evaluation, and we discussed the richness that comes out of that and how the lives of people across this country are being transformed every single day. As part of the accountability piece, we want to show the return in what OCS is doing with this information. As you all know, OCS is required by law to furnish a report to Congress with the data in the CSBG Annual Report, both to the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, and the House Committee on Education and Workforce. We are so happy to announce that the 2021 report to Congress was published, and the 2022 is in the final clearance stages. And now, with all of the information that I shared with you today, and working to get those final remaining grant recipients across the finish line, we are aiming to submit the 2023 report to Congress before this year ends. OCS ability to fulfill its legal requirement is tied to the ability of our local agencies submitting to their states and territories, and our states, territories, and tribes reviewing and submitting data to us. We also know there's a lot of excitement around the CSBG Performance Management website, and we thank you all for your continued patience as we move through the national rollout. As part of the national rollout, we wanted to ensure that our grant recipients accessed the site and used it so that we can take their feedback and enhance the website based on said feedback, and then open it up to the next group, which are state associations. The fiscal year 22 data is uploaded, and the initial data for fiscal year 23, so a lot of what I just shared a couple of slides ago, has also been updated. We hope to have all of the final data making its way into the CSBG Performance Management website, and it should be available by November for those states that were completely submitted and closed out by September 30th. We are planning to release a Dear Colleague letter soon that will provide additional details for the next access group, which are our state associations. Next slide, please. Again, we've established our foundation, our key successes, and shared OCS's shared role and responsibility to report out on this great work at the federal level. We're now going to dive into the work ahead to prepare for the FY24 CSBG Annual Report. Next slide. So we'll review all the dates for training and technical assistance, but we do want to emphasize some key dates as you all are planning to ensure that not only our grant recipients, so our states, tribes, and territories, but also our subrecipients, our eligible entities, are aware, as these impact everyone submitting data on time and to completion. In November, we intend to have available both the SMART forms for those recipients that utilize them for their submission, and the online data collection system, or OLDC, available for the network. Your assigned data and evaluation specialists will send you formal correspondence with access to all of your blank SMART forms, the fillable tools like the Module 1 form and the state level comment forms. For our grant recipients that operate a database, you will receive the forms as a backup option in the event that there are system issues midstream. The annual report webinar will conclude in the beginning of December, so December 9th. All of the webinars, their recordings and slides will be uploaded onto our website on a rolling basis so that it's available on demand. At the beginning of March, there will be 2 office hour offerings for grant recipients to work directly with the federal team on any last minute questions or issues. And finally, the date that matters, March 31st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time is when the annual report is due. On March 31st at 11:59 p.m. at Eastern Time is when the annual report is due. On Tuesday, April 1st, our team is going to log in to access the system and send out confirmation notices, and we will begin to download the data to analyze the data that was submitted. Next slide, please. We want to provide a little peek behind the curtain and explain the process. It's really important when we emphasize that March 31st, we want to emphasize the why. So this process provides a very high-level overview of the FY24 CSBG Annual Report. We want to emphasize the role of our states and territories with subrecipients, so our eligible entities. And it is absolutely critical that grant recipients are reviewing the data submitted by eligible entities. This is an opportune time to check for errors, warnings, and just the holistic validity of the data. Grant recipients then submit the complete report into OLDC. A complete report includes modules 1, 2, and 4, and module 3 if submitting for this year. And for all agencies that received and expended funding during the fiscal year and do so by March 31st. OCS will then begin the federal quality assurance review process. This process is about accountability and ensuring data quality. Here, we work on technical things like errors and warnings based on the logic of the report. Through engagement with grant recipients, both grant recipients and subrecipients should begin working on the mitigation while revising and resubmitting data. Upon successful completion, OCS will close out the report. We then work to aggregate this information to begin the national performance reporting. So being able to provide the high-level overview of the Module 3 submissions and some of the characteristics data hinges on everyone submitting on time and revising and resubmitting if there are errors within the data that defy the logic of the report. Next slide, please. What's the Federal Quality Assurance Review? The Federal Quality Assurance Review is not only our commitment to this network, but our commitment to data quality and enhancing the quality of how we measure performance as a federal agency. The storytelling component happens long before March 31st, but the formal Federal Quality Assurance Review process begins the day after the report is due. We export all of the data and begin reviewing it with you all. Last year, we launched the Data Assurance Call to provide one-on-one support to states and territories, and we aim to bring it back this year for states, territories, and tribes as an option. We encourage you all to take advantage of these calls and use them as a moment to dive deep into the data tailored to your state, tribe, or territory. During these calls is also where we learn about things you all contend with and how we can inform and update our processes to better support this network. Next slide. As part of our lessons learned, our team spent time meeting with many of you and hearing some of the things that impact the reporting. And we want to share some best and promising practices to hopefully position the network for success for the FY24 annual report. While these are some top of the line best practices, there are many more that we plan to leverage and discuss with you all either through your data assurance calls or through routine engagement like the quarterly calls hosted by our colleagues in the program operations branch. The first is records retention. As part of the data collection process, it is critically important that state, tribal, and territorial agencies retain their files that support the report. We've seen instances where a data point was inaccurate and needed to be revised, and upon revision, it may trigger a revision to another, and the files are no longer available. This can have implications on grant recipient compliance, namely submitting the materials required by law. So we want to emphasize retaining the records throughout the life cycle of reporting. For our grant recipients, be sure to compare your forms to OLDC. There are times when the update is made on the smart form, but not in OLDC, or an update is made in a third-party system, and the update doesn't make its way over into OLDC. So comparing what's entered onto forms across the systems helps to minimize some of the lag in getting the data corrected and updated. For our grant recipients, we also discussed this on the process slides, but grant recipients are also expected to review submissions before it goes into the system, and should also ensure that 100% of the agencies that received and expended funds have an annual report submitted. We hope that these best practices and the knowledge of them help position each and every member of our network required to submit a portion of this report for success. Next slide. We covered the accountability elements, and I do want to go over accessibility and knowledge and how OCS and its partners are here to support your success through training and technical assistance. OCS is firmly committed to showing up for you all for training and technical assistance. We are here to partner in our collective success and want to make sure that you all are armed with the tools and resources to not only collect the data and submit it, but move beyond compliance and help that data leap off the page and shape into the rich story that it is. Next slide. Considering reaching our peak through training and technical assistance, as outlined in the action transmittal for the CSBG Annual Report for fiscal year 24, we detailed 3 categories of resources: tools, training, and technical assistance. The tools are the tangibles and the things you need to get it done. So your smart forms, and the training are the dynamic conversations that we review that have clear objectives. Technical assistance, I like to think of it as the homework. This how you may be applying the knowledge of peak and how we can help you better use that information. Our goal is to see you all win and succeed, and I'm going to go through each of these resource categories. Next slide. For the tools available, and this isn't an all-exhaustive list, but these are the key ones that have things you need to get started. The CSBG Annual Report Toolkit, which is available now on the OCS CSBG website, and it's updated regularly. This has the fillable tools like the Module 1 document that a lot of our states like to use to complete Module 1, as well as additional materials. The vendor portal hosted on the NASCAS website as part of the OCS-funded cooperative agreement. The vendor portal is specific to those grant recipients that use a third-party vendor system to submit their data. The webinar that we're hosting on December 3rd in partnership with NASCAS will review this tool. And lastly, the online data collection system, or OLDC, where all grant recipients, states, tribes, and territories must submit their complete annual report. We will have a webinar in December going through accessing OLDC, but we strongly encourage, if you know that you have had changes to your state staff that are responsible for supporting the annual report submission, please review the action transmittal to ensure that those individuals have access to OLDC early in advance. So if there are any problems, we can help you troubleshoot those with our partners at Grant Solutions. Next slide. So for training, this would be an example. For this year's annual report series, we have the Understanding the CSBG Annual Report for Performance. All of the dates for the CSBG Annual Report webinars are included in the action transmittal and is also linked here on the slides and will be dropped in the chat. And it has every single webinar being hosted, and I'm going to go through those individually. And then we also have our on-demand webinars. Because we're using Annual Report 2.1, which is the same report that's been used from previous years, all of our on-demand webinars available on the official ACF YouTube page are still pretty applicable. And we encourage you all to share that with the team that's supporting the submission of the annual report. Next slide, please. So for the FY24 annual report training, this provides a listing of all of the webinars taking place. We have the kickoff that's taking place right now. And then on October 23rd, we'll review Module 1, which is submitting for state administration. And the intended audience for this are our states and territory administrators. November 14th, explaining the eligible entities, expenditures, capacity, and resources, or Module 2. We strongly encourage our eligible entity executive directors or staff that submit Module 2 to the states and territories to join that webinar. November 19th is Capturing Community Level Transformation, which is Module 3, and the first of its kind for our team. We encourage those that are actively submitting or working on community level initiatives to join the November 19th webinar. November 21st is Collecting Individual and Family Characteristics, or Module 4. We encourage our states, territories, and our eligible entities to participate in this webinar. And then in December, we'll shift to the technical components of the annual report submission. So December 3rd are for those states that operate using a third-party vendor website for their annual report submission. This is going to be co-hosted with NASCAS, but we'll also go over the vendor portal. December 5th, Understanding and Troubleshooting Smart Forms. For those of you that require the use of smart forms because you don't use the state system, we'll walk through some common issues with the forms, understanding what it means when you see an error or a warning. And then we'll close out the series with accessing the online data collection system, or OLDC. I do want to emphasize, if you have new folks on staff who are going to be supporting this submission of the report, we encourage you to review the action transmittal to get them set up with an OLDC account. During some of these webinars, we'll also do some live demonstration. And if someone wants to, plans to access OLDC, we would encourage you to have your account set up so we can answer any routine questions during the December 9th webinar. Next slide. For technical assistance, as shared, OCS is committed to ensuring that you all receive the training and technical assistance necessary, and we're providing a listing of what that looks like. On the federal side, so here in OCS, each state and territory and tribe has 2 federal team members assigned to them. You have a program specialist who provides daily oversight for grant administration, answers questions about state plan, all of the elements of just administering CSBG. Then you also have your data and evaluation specialists who serve on my team in policy data and evaluation, and they run point on the annual report. So if you have questions about understanding an error or a warning or the logic or understanding a component or definition of the annual report, we ask that you contact your data and evaluation specialists. Here in the Division of Community Assistance, they work as a team. So when submitting requests, it's always important to copy the program specialist if you're emailing the data and evaluation specialist. And if someone isn't available, we'll make sure that your question gets routed to the appropriate person. For the FY24 annual report, we're also hosting office hours. So on March 4th and March 6th, we're going to host 2 separate office hours. One will be in the morning and one will be in the afternoon to accommodate the time zone difference across the country. And if you have any individualized questions about the annual report before submitting, your data and evaluation specialist will be on standby. And then finally, through our commitment to targeted training and technical assistance, OCS has a cadre of training and technical assistance providers. And targeted training and technical assistance, so a one-on-one with one of our funded providers like NASCAS, is available by emailing your data and evaluation specialist. So if you've had a concern with something in the annual report, or you need to spend a bit more time unpacking a specific service or FNPI, please email your data and evaluation specialist so that we can refer you for targeted training and technical assistance with one of the OCS funded providers at no cost to you. Next slide. And as a next up, we're going to head into questions and open it up for discussion. On October 23rd is the next webinar, which is submitting Module 1, State Administration. And this is intended for our states and territories. And then again, March 31st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time is when the complete fiscal year 24 CSBG Annual Report is due in the online data collection system. Next slide. Before we open it up for questions, we do just want to say thank you. We had allotted more time for this just in case we had a lot of questions. But I'm going to address the questions first, but I'm going to turn it over to Nikki to see if there are any other logistical things I need to do before we start to answer them.
No, I'm in that. I think we can proceed with the Q&A.
Perfect. All right.